Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting of Monday, September 9th at 4:30. And just have to call the meeting to order, I have a couple opening comments. First off, I'd like to thank Irv and Corinne Gerling as well as Barb Nagum. If you go by and see the Munchie dinosaur at night, it's so cool. And thank you to Jared and everybody there who arranged the lights. And they're actually on, you can change colors, and so it's pretty neat. So thank you to those guys because I know they spent many hours and they almost had to call a divorce lawyer. So thank goodness it worked out. Jared, can you give us an update on the town cleanup, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Public Works crews are currently out in East Cooley. They are performing the town cleanup in that area today. They'll be moving to Rosedale, Wayne, and Highway 10X as of tomorrow, and they'll be continuing towards Drumheller at the Knack Mine over the next 2 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Crystal, you got an update?
I do. Just want to let everyone know that collaboration between Travel Drumheller and Travel Alberta, the next resident sentiment survey is out. So you just go to traveldrumheller.com and you'll find the survey. It is very, very important for our residents to provide feedback on tourism to help us shape. Maybe there's some stuff that you're seeing that's, the municipality or Travel Drumheller is not. So we really, really need to have this feedback. It's open until September 20th.
Thank you, Crystal. And Tom.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that pancake breakfast season is upon us. So if you want delicious pancake breakfast on Sunday, a number of the groups in the valley do pancake breakfast. Knights of Columbus do the pancake breakfast at St. Anthony's Hall, second Sunday of the month. Then the Knack Mine Community Association on the third Sunday, and then East Cooley on the fourth Sunday. So if you want delicious pancake breakfast, all you can eat, bacon and eggs and sausage and all that good stuff, pancake breakfast.
Thank you, Tom. Tom is going to be the deputy mayor for the next 2 months. So Tom, could you read your oath?
I, Tom Zariski, solemnly affirm that I will diligently, faithfully, and to the best of my ability execute according to the law the office of Deputy Mayor for the town of Drumheller for the months of September and October 2024.
Thank you very much and congratulations. And thank you to Lisa, although she had a short win of deputy mayor. Thank you, and thank you for Crystal for all the work you've done throughout the summer as well. Is there any additions to the agenda? Nope. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of September 9th, please? Tony?
I move that council adopt the agenda for the September 9, 2024 regular meeting of council as presented.
Seconder, please. Stephanie? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of August 26th, please? Patrick?
I move the council approve the minutes of the August 26, 2024 regular meeting as presented.
Seconder, please. Crystal? Comments? Crystal?
Is there a reason why it says draft minutes beside it?
I put draft because they're draft until they've been accepted.
Okay, I just have never noticed that before. Oh, am I not paying attention this whole time? Okay.
Anybody else? All in favor? Carried. Okay, we shall move on to 8.1.1, please. So I'm going to be presenting this. So I just attached, you will see, we have the new, so we have the mid-sized mayor's caucus, which we all approved those terms of references a couple months ago. And they've just made a couple adjustments in there, just basically cleanup of the document. There's nothing impactful, just they had to add a couple communities that have joined on and stuff like that. So there's nothing there that's any really much different than what we had. So I just have to have the amended terms of reference approved. So it is, I'm assuming you guys all, like, you'll notice The proposed amendments are renaming the section 2 to incorporate the organizational name, adding section 9 to address the confidentiality that we have to deal with in some of the meetings, and removing notes to self. So there's just those 3 adjustments to the terms of reference. So I imagine you guys all read them this weekend. So do you have any questions? Go ahead, Tom.
I move that council approve the Alberta Mid-Sized Towns Mayor's Caucus Terms of Reference as amended.
Seconder Stephanie, comments? Tom?
Yeah, I'm just wondering again, I forgot, what is the size of mid-sized towns?
I believe it was anything over 2,000 and less than 10. So, because then there's like the Sylvan Lake and stuff that goes mid-sized cities. And so we stay the mid-sized towns. Patrick?
It notes on here that there's approximately 84 potential members. Do we have sort of an idea of how many people have signed on at this point, or?
It keeps changing almost daily, but I believe we're over 20 now.
Okay.
It started out as the Mayor South Central Caucus. That's how kind of the organization started. And then it flowed into the mid-size because we had other communities our size throughout Alberta that wanted to be part of it. So
I guess my thought is when we look at the terms of reference with meetings having quorum, if there's 84 potential members and having to get 50% of that to just make decisions seems like it could become cumbersome unless we had another mechanism within it. But
yeah, and I think and actually the population is between 1,000 and 14,999. Sorry, Tom. I just had to go back on my notes. But yeah, there will be a mechanism if it ever got to that. It might end up splitting into north-south or quadrants or something. But as of right now, and that's probably where the adjustments could come through on the terms of reference.
okay, no, I think it sounds like a good initiative to rally for communities that size.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor? Carried. And Angela, I'll get you to send those off once they're approved. Okay, let's move on to 8.1.2, please, Reg.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Tonight I'm presenting a request for decision to apply to the Housing Accelerator Fund. I noted this as the Housing Accelerator Fund 2.0. As you know, we applied for this last year and were denied. The funds this time around are $400 million, which is about 1/10 of the size of the previous fund that was set up in 2022. Again, the fund requires us to do lasting changes that help induce supply of housing, and these changes are in our land use planning and development approvals processes. But because we applied for the first round, we're allowed to apply this time of round. So it's only folks that applied to the first round of funding that can do it this time around again. So we are recommending that we do follow through and apply for the rural stream. Again, this time around, you have to have 5 initiatives at a minimum, and they have to be completed within the 3-year time frame. But we have to change our initiatives and add 3 new ones compared to our last application. So the 5 initiatives that we are recommending are in the bullets below. So we're still keeping our secondary suites incentive program, if you recall our last application. Our new one that was strongly recommended by the CMHC is to actually publish our development permit processing times so that developers know how efficient we are with respect to that process. The third item that we have is we have an affordable housing project. We had this in our last application, but in this one, as opposed to working on one that just has 5 out of 15 units that are affordable, we are proposing that we get IFCs and geotechnical drawings and get a 20-unit project with DHA shovel ready so that we can apply for additional grants to pay for the construction down the road. The fourth initiative is e-permitting, which is a new initiative. compared to our last application, and this will just help us with efficiencies internally. So we won't be downloading files manually and uploading them into our e-permitting site, and it'll also help the applicants reduce their permitting time because they can just fill it all out online. And then the last initiative is identified a gap in our residential incentive program, which is we only do new builds. And so I thought it would be a good idea to introduce an incentive program that'll incent conversion of non-residential buildings into residential buildings if we receive the funding. So that's the 5 initiatives that we're proposing. There's a description under that for the types and levels of funding we get by the units that we've proposed in our application. We also want to show that this aligns with our affordable housing and our other initiatives within our housing strategy. There's some notes also in the RFD with respect to how it aligns to the federal government's initiatives. Yeah. Oh, and also at the last of it is just a full page and a greater description of the 5 initiatives within our 2024 housing application to have. And if you have any questions with respect to details, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thanks, Reg. Can I get a motion, please, Council? Crystal?
I move that council approve the Housing Accelerator Fund HAF Action Plan 2024 and the attached action plan initiatives.
Seconder? Lisa? Comments? Lisa?
Okay, I'm just wondering about the e-permits. Does that apply to like solar panels? Or is it more for like e-bikes and like e-cars, eco cars?
So it's automating any permit application for development permits or building permits or electrical permits or gas permits. So the permits that we process as administration with respect to construction of housing.
And so the E just stands to like being online, not
Yeah.
okay. Perfect. And yeah, good work. When it comes to the 5 objectives you have on there, and you said you had 3 per 2, or you have to change out 3. So, are all of the objectives now used up after the 5th on this application?
Well, we could add more than 5, but we just thought we would meet the minimum. If you recall, the last time we actually had 6. But from a scoring perspective, I don't think it really changes how we would be graded with respect to getting awarded the application. So we just decided to go with 5 this time, but we could add additional ones if council felt it necessary.
My own personal feeling was that it's better to have less and go more in depth on the less than on more and have put in more, because you weren't successful at 6, so I'm not sure how 5 is going to play out. And yeah, there might be more money, but this is the feds and it's over a period of time. And if it doesn't meet currently their political agenda, likelihood of actually having it approved is less. Just my thoughts.
Thank you.
Crystal?
Yeah, a couple things. Can you explain what missing middle housing is?
Perfect. Yeah. So, well, that aligns really, really well with our housing strategy. Council has, directed us like, wouldn't it be great if we had duplexes and townhouses and condos? Because we're really, we have um, minor shacks and single detached houses. We do have some apartment complexes and some condos, but we're really missing a lot of that market inventory that helps attract young talent for potential employers. And so that's what the missing middle describes. It's that higher density housing.
Thanks. And non-residential would be something like a hotel converted into some type of housing. That would be a good example.
Perfect
Okay.
example, yeah.
Okay. When it comes to the housing related infrastructure, sewer, water upgrades, so that would be to get sewer water to a new development area in the valley or something like that, right? That could qualify for this type of funding.
Exactly. So as part of our application, we put together what we think these programs will cost us, and if we have a surplus in any way, then we can, put that towards a.
Okay.
If we did a cap, for example, or not as many people applied for the incentive program for non-res,
Mhm.
and we had a surplus, we are then allowed to apply that towards a capital
So
project.
say
like that.
a profit company comes, says, hey, I want to build a condo complex. This is going to be the cost. And then we have a little bit of extra. We can actually then supply the water sewer for it as well. Part
Yeah.
of this funding. Okay.
Great example, yeah.
Okay. And then do we know why we were denied the last one? Like, did they give any feedback from it?
So the first time we went through, they didn't provide feedback initially, and we also worked with CMHC to go through all their other funding mechanisms that we might qualify for. This time around, I got a little sneak peek meeting with some of the folks that will be grading our application, and they just really strongly recommended that we have timeliness within our milestones. So moving a lot of the completion dates closer, like to the 2025 year. And the other thing they recommended was that we really focus on impact. So they wanted impact quick. So if we get like an incentive program out the door quickly and we start handing it out, then that's timeliness and higher impact quicker. So that's what's in our application.
And again, this housing accelerator fund is to allow funds to be used so that you get it ready. It's not actually to build, it's to get it ready for building, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's systemic change and
Right.
yeah.
It's the first stage. Okay. Thank you. I think that's it.
Tom?
Just want to talk about seniors housing for a minute. I guess given that the Seniors Foundation, which runs the manors and the lodges and the cottages and the villas, have wait lists for all of those facilities. I'm just wondering if this would help out any of those in any way. I mean, we desperately need another manor. We desperately need more independent living cottage type seniors housing. Um, we desperately need, an SL4. So I'm just wondering, would this affect seniors housing in any way?
So if there was a surplus, we could, elect to use some of the funding to maybe run shallow utilities to a project like that. But the intent of the initiatives are to help development across the board. So it's systemic changes, right? So our e-permitting system improvements will help any type of residential development get approved quicker, and we would have more time to like select either affordable housing or seniors development and just work on those first and get those turned quickly. But we would have to wait till what council decides to do with the surplus, if there was one, to see if we would push it towards a seniors project or not.
Anybody else? So I'm just curious. So then if you took a building downtown that was sitting there for many years, you're saying they could apply through us to get funding to help?
That's the intent of the last initiative. So what we would do is receive their applications similar to what we do for a new build for a single detached house or a duplex, and we would say, okay, you're applying for this tax incentive. We would receive the application, make the recommendation to council, and once we have council approval, we could award. But we can use this funding to award that as opposed to deferring taxes.
Okay. And so the deadline is September 13th here, so you're hitting it close. So obviously you need our approval, so that we'll have, I'll call vote here. And how long does it take before we know?
Well, they actually took a little more time than what they said they were going to take last time. And that question was asked on the application meeting that they had on Teams prior to. But there's 375 jurisdictions that still qualify for this pool of 400 million. So if they've got to go through 375, I would suspect it might take them a little longer than they expected this time around too. But yeah, we should know early next year. So.
Okay. No, good work on that, Reg. All right, any other questions? All in favor? Move it forward. Okay, let's move on to bylaw 26.24. Excuse me, Daryl, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a revision of bylaw 1624, which council passed in June of this year, which was to create a public utility lot of 3 parcels of land that were previously road closures for our Newcastle Broom project. They were submitted by our surveyor to Land Titles, and Land Titles a week ago rejected the submissions because Land Titles has changed their process and now requires a block number to be as part of the title that's being submitted. So previously, and even on this part of this project, we have submitted stuff that is lot and plan only, but they, as of this past month, have decided that they want to do lot block plan. So just like people's homes or the town hall has a lot block plan, they now are, the province is now asking to have lot block plan added to any public utility lot or environmental reserve lot that's being created. So what we need to do, unfortunately, is have a, unfortunately because it has to come back here, is the motion of council to say that you'll approve adding the block numbers to the actual survey plan that's attached, and so that we can resubmit the bylaw to Land Titles to hopefully get it then approved as a public utility lot. And yeah, so we're requesting all 3 readings of the bylaw tonight. It should be just a housekeeping item because you've already approved it in June of this year, and hopefully, and we will have one more in the next meeting that just came in for an environmental reserve in Midland with the exact same problem that happened. So
Thanks, Daryl. Can I get a motion, please, council? Tony?
I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 26.24, revision of bylaw number 16.24.
Seconder? Stephanie? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion for second reading, please? Tom?
I move that council gives second reading to bylaw number 26.24, revision of bylaw number 16.24.
Seconder Lisa? Comments? Crystal?
My signature is on this, and I'm glad it wasn't me that didn't review the documents properly. That's all I have to say. I was panicking a little bit when I was reading the agenda.
Lisa?
Just a brief question. So when they're looking for the lot block plan, does it make it easier for them to find if we add that addition on?
no, because there are a number of PULs or ER lots in Drumheller as all over Alberta that have no blocks in them now. So we have done environmental reserves in the last couple of years that don't have a block number on them. And so as long as you have the plan number, that's the key piece of information to be able to locate them. I know our surveyor is a bit frustrated and bewildered as to why they've suddenly started asking for this, because in his 50 some years of practice, they've never asked for this before. So it might be something that in his opinion, it was that someone's trying to do a checklist of things that, they're younger and little less experienced and just trying to go through the list of things that are required and said, nope, you need to have a block number on these. And of course they are the sole decider of whether things get accepted or rejected, and they've rejected it. So a couple of them.
Interesting. Thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor? Carried. Okay, can I get a motion for third reading, please?
Nope.
Patrick?
No revision.
I'll make a motion
Oh,
for
sorry
unanimous
for
consent.
consent.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will make a motion that council give unanimous consent for third reading of bylaw 26.24, revision of bylaw 16.24.
Seconder, please. Lisa, you grab your mic. Comments? All in favor? Carried. Can I get it going to third reading, please? Stephanie.
I move that council gives third reading to bylaw 26.24, revision of bylaw number 16.24.
Seconder, please. Tony, comments? Lisa?
So just to reiterate to those listening, this was passed earlier on. So this is just a couple of endorsements you might
So,
want to say.
so council passed this, created the public utility lot, but it was rejected simply on a technicality of no block number in the lots and plans. So if you look on the drawing, you'd actually see that we have a couple of different lot numbers on there as well as plan numbers. And so this is just basically to satisfy land titles office.
So I guess my second question on that is, what are the extra costs associated with that change? Or is there?
Probably off the top of my head is probably a few $100s, right? Because we had to get someone to modify the drawings and create a new bylaw for it. So yeah, by the time we're all said and done, it's probably about I would say $500, probably reasonable number.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All in favor? Carried. Let's move on to 8.3.1, please, Victoria.
Good morning, workshop and council. So this is regarding 2024 municipal tax cancellations. This has been presented to council at the last council meeting, but I make an error to the amounts. So all the facts remain the same with respect to the stencil manner, just the amounts needs to be revised. So I'm asking council to pass two motions. One is to rescind the motions that council passed. And then the second one is the new motions to reflect the new amount, which is $15,035.22.
Perfect. Can I get a motion, please, council? Tom?
I move the council rescind the motion number 2024.268 adopted on August 26, 2024.
Seconder, please. Crystal? Comments? All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion to approve the new motion, please? Crystal?
I move that council approve the cancellation of the 2024 municipal tax levied against roll number 04029906, Drumheller Housing Administration, in the amount of $15,035.22.
Seconder, please. Stephanie, comments? Crystal?
We just have a couple. So because this isn't completed before the taxes are due, DHA won't get any like penalties or anything for the, okay. And there's just a minor change. The last sentence before recommendation, it says DMA in brackets. I just don't want people to get confused. It says cancellation of the municipal tax levy periods, financial relief for the DMA. DHA, okay, yeah, so I don't know if we need I don't know, it's just in the, yeah, it's nothing.
It's not
just,
in the motion, so it's okay.
Yeah, no, okay, thanks.
All right, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we shall move on to 8.3.2, please, Victoria.
So this is a RFD request for directions. As we are heading to the 2025 budget, we would like to follow, the administration would like to follow up with the directions from councils to diversify our property tax. So to give you some oops, so this is wrong. Okay. So, as in 2024, the town of Drumheller has 4,328 taxable properties, and that generates $10.6 million in the municipal tax. That supports all the operations, the capital,
and then also the RCMP policing as well. As we heard from the RCMP presentations at the last council meeting, it projected a 3.5% increase, which equals to over $2.1 million. And that basically representing 20% of our operating budget. If we divided that policing cost to 4,328 property owners, each of us will be paying $485.21 just to the RCMP service for the town. In Alberta, how we do the property tax is based on the assessed value of the property and then times the tax mill rate and equal the amounts that we need to pay the tax. So in this case, I want to bring the council's attention is that in 2024, we have just shy of 1/4 of our properties is paying less than $750. And this is the map. So the reds, the white boxes is showing the properties that are paying less than $250. The yellow areas is those paying less than $500. And then those in greens is paying less than $750, and they are aggregate. So basically, all the colored boxes represent over 21 properties in town that's paying less than $750. Based on the average residential property owners in town, the tax portion is $2,123.26. So you can see that that is a big difference in the tax inequities. For those, that is the average homeowners paying $2,123, and then we have 1/4 paying less than $750, and they are sharing the same infrastructures, the same service levels, emergency services, as well as the RCMP policing as well. So, so the further down in the box actually showing the impact. So for instance, $250, so those properties are paying less than $250. We're talking about 600 properties, representing about 13.86% of the overall tax base. And then the numbers would be for residential residential property 331, non-residential, which is commercials 25, mobile home 98, agricultural land 118, and then DIP designated industrial property is 28. And then as we move forward to the $500 categories, so residentials 449, commercials land 48, mobile home 105, agricultural land 136, DIP 29, and machineries at 4. And then you see that the numbers of properties paying less than 500 is now 771, representing just shy of 18%. When I do the analysis, most of those properties are either vacant land or agricultural land that is subject to the proposed minimum tax if we're going ahead with that. Given the assessment value that we talk about, most of the mobile home will be affected by the minimum tax because they don't own the land, they just own the structures. So that you can see that that is also another group that have a significant amount of the representation here. Minimum tax is not a new tax tool. It has been adopted by other municipalities to address basically the situation we face with the tax inequities among the property classes and then depending on the assessment values. So, and then our neighbors that impose the minimum tax ranging from Wheatland $25 to the town of Crossfield of $800. So it varies. And then they've been implement that minimum tax for years. As you can see that the range is really different because in general speaking, the service level that's provided by the town and counties are significantly different with respect to the infrastructures, with respect to whether it's a paved road or gravel roads. All that is also put into the considerations of the town's financial requirements. So if we are proposing the minimum tax, which is going ahead or going forward for the budget year, this is the impact. So if we're imposing $250, the incremental tax revenue, we're talking about 16,000 for 600 properties. If we are proposing a $500 minimum tax affecting 771 properties, we're talking about incremental tax revenue of $121,000. And then if we're imposing a $750 minimum tax, that affecting 1,021 properties in town, the incremental tax revenues will be $325,000. And then, of course, from the administrations, that minimum tax of 750 will generate the most favorable outcome. But we also recognize that it is the first introductions, and then also recognizing that that might be a financial hardship for others. We believe that the $500 would be the first, would be of the most reasonable. And then also we looking at comparison that $500 basically just barely pay for the RCMP costs. As I mentioned, that we are paying equally about $483 per property tax owner, per property owner, just for the RCMP policing. So $500 just barely covering that. Never mention about the roads or the waters system that we provide. And with that, we're talking about just 1% increase for the overall incremental tax. So what the administration is proposing is that because this is not going to, like, this is not the we're asking decisions right now because it's going to be a different step on that. This would not be approved until we present the 2025 tax rate bylaw. So all this time, we actually develop a communication strategy so that we can engage the public to discuss this with the council as well as with the administrations. And we're going to do that in different phases. But again, this would not be finalized until the 2025 tax rate bylaw, probably in May 2025. But I would like to seek the council direction so that I can incorporate this in the 2025 budget considerations. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Victoria. Questions, comments, council? Tony?
Yeah, thanks for your work on identifying these here properties. Can't believe in 4,000 tax-paying properties in Drumheller, and there's 1,000 of them that are less than 750. I like the example you laid out for the policing and what that costs the normal homeowner, and again, those costs continue to escalate every year. Not to say that all of these properties get fire protection as well. So I'd be looking to support a minimum of $500 there, based on just covering basic policing costs, and that wouldn't even cover fire protection costs for a response from the department there. So I feel that's more than reasonable. The only question I had was on the communication process. Seeing as this does not affect the majority of the properties in Drumheller, is a utility bill communication worthy, being that the impact is more direct to a certain segment of, like I would think a direct letter to those would be more effective than a broad-based utility bill.
So we recognizing that that is some limitation to the utility bills because some of the utility bills are actually sent to the tenants. Or that the vacant land would not have utility accounts. So we recognizing that, but we would like the public all know that it is not selected communications. We want everyone knows that because we want to build back the tax inequity. And then second, the fact is that we cannot preempt knowing which properties will fall under the minimum tax because the classification might change, and then as well as the property assessment value could change. So right now we kind of extrapolate based on 2024 figures, but the assessment value or the classification could change in 2025.
I think if I could just add on one piece to that too, and a good explanation, Victoria. is that like, we also want to be able to let the people know that pay much more than the minimum tax rate, that there are people that isn't an equitable system, right? So it's almost, because if we direct it specifically to the folks that pay the less than 500, there could be a bit of a communication backlash from them going, this is really unfair, but if we can tell the people that pay 10 times that amount for taxes, there's a more balanced voice, we believe, than just letting the small group sort of dictate the conversation.
Yeah, my concern isn't the utility bill. My concern would be reaching the impacted owners. So the utility bill is broad-based communication. I would just hate to see the individual tax impacted owner not identifying that, hey, that is me.
So that's why we're also using the existing channels. So it will be on our website, will be on all our social medias. And then the second phase will be when we send out the property assessment notice. Then that will be the time that the property tax owners will receive the bill. And at that point, we cannot really know whether you will fall under the 500s because we haven't set the tax rate yet. So, so that's why I think it would be better that everyone is on the same footing. That this is the new, this is a new introductions, and not everyone's affected by that. But I would say the majority will not be affected by that.
Tom?
Yeah, thank you for this information. It's a bit of an eye opener, certainly, that there are properties in Drumheller that are paying so little. And I would hazard a guess that the amounts that they are paying don't even cover the expenses incurred by administering our assessment and taxation system. And I think the communication strategy has to be broad enough, as Daryl said, to communicate to taxpayers that they are basically sharing that burden. That because these properties are paying so little, the other taxpayers are picking up that. So I think we're talking a little bit about fair share here. And so I would be in favor of the 500 minimum. And part of the communication, as I say, should be, this barely covers the cost of administering our whole system. So
Patrick?
And yeah, I agree with that sentiment that the tax burden needs to be equally shared. I guess I am concerned with some of the lower income areas, like for like mobile homes. Do we have an average of what they're paying now? Are they going to be going from $70 to 500, or like $250 to 500?
I don't know because like even with the mobile homes, like the assessment value varies. But if we're talking about $500, I know that some of the mobile homes like paying $80 a
'Cause
year.
that's quite a jump in a year.
Yes, but then if you are thinking about $500 divided by 12 months, we're talking about 40 some dollars a month. I know that it is a big jump, but then recognizing that that is some fixed costs that you enjoy from living in the town of Drumheller, that we would expect that everyone will be footing the sum of the costs.
No, I absolutely agree. I was curious too if just with this minimum tax, should it be applied, partially to the land and partially to the improvements, or?
So because the trailer land is separately owned by the own, and usually that land is actually more than the assessed value, so it would not affected by the minimum tax. It's the individual's trailer or the mobile homeowner. And like, as I mentioned, that some of the assessment varies from $20,000 to $150,000. So
Okay.
yeah.
No, I absolutely understand. And like I say, I do agree that the tax burden needs to be equally shared on these things. It's just, it is quite a jump in some cases.
Anybody else? Lisa?
So I noticed that it looks like the Village Bicycle actually went down in their pricing from 878 to 784. Any idea why?
I cannot speak to that, but I can assume that it's probably the overall property assessment value probably goes up, so that it would not affect the minimum tax.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think with Bicycle, I know that they're putting in another lagoon, so I was wondering if it was project related. And then I found it very interesting what you had to say about policing costs, and what Tony reiterated that almost $500 a person, like unreal. So I'd have no problem whatsoever supporting a $500 jump. Um, yeah, I mean, for $40 a month, I think it's only fair compared to paying $5,000-6,000 a year, right? So, yeah, it's a tough one, but well done.
Crystal?
Yeah, kind of the same comments as Pat, just about specifically mobile home parks. 'Cause a lot of that is rental. And I really do worry about some of the landlords really taking advantage of the people that can't really afford it. And I know we have no control over what landlords charge, but that definitely is a bit of my concern, and that we are lacking a lot of low income housing. So
I remember just quickly look at that. The landowner would not be affected by that because the assessment value probably is big enough that it would not. The minimum tax, they're paying more than minimum tax right now. It's just that individual structure owner that would be affected by this.
yeah, no, for sure. But if the owner of the land also owns a mobile home park, he's going to try to recoup his costs from the renter, right? And so but we have no control over that, right? Like, just a bit of a concern. But I would be in support of the $500, and I don't know, maybe there's some subsidy programs out there. Who knows, right? Like, for these lower income people, but.
Steph?
So no one likes raising taxes. It's just unfortunately the cost of everything is raising and we have to pay for it. So I'm in support of the $500 raise.
Anybody else? Well, first off, I'd like to thank you, Victoria, for finding this. Not sure how this got through for as long as it did. So appreciate that. And when you consider communities like Town of Three Hills at $450 and Town of Crossfield at 800, I think that the margins you've come up with are very reasonable and fair. And for the listening public, I mean, I think this stumbled on finding out that somebody's paying $8 for taxes was kind of a reality check that we've got something broken, and it's obviously gone on for a long time. And thank you for, like I say, Victoria's very thorough with funding and budgeting, and the team and everybody else who got this. I think it's just fair to those who are paying, like you say, the average is over $2,000, and they're all driving. We're all driving on the same roads, using the same sidewalks, using the same recreation facilities. So I don't think we're being unreasonable on this at all. So, all right, go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I just want to repeat that important point that this is a tax inequity, and that's how we're coming at this. This isn't a tax money grab from the municipalities end. Yes, there is a net effect of about $100,000 to the positive, which is minimal in our overall budget. Um, Again, the tax inequity is to bridge police and fire costs across individual owners.
All right, anything else you need? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right, we shall move on to the fire bylaw 8.4.1, please. And Greg, are you?
Okay, Your Worship. Yes, I'll go through this, and the chief will be on hand if any questions or anything salient to him. If it pleases council, we have a briefing note, request for direction, and a copy of a new fire bylaw that you have reviewed. We are seeking a major change that permitting us through the bylaw to recover costs for fire department responses and services. Fire protection is a well-known hallmark of municipal government and considered a given for anyone living in the municipality. But as council knows, from time to time over the years, is exorbitant. The cost of equipment and the costs of our only increasing equipment is terribly expensive to buy. Um, we are seeking to maintain, of course, the high standard of fire protection in the community, but also to recoup reasonable costs where possible. To that end, we have a new draft in front of you um, with and a schedule of fees and fines at the very back. I know from time to time over the years, council has discussed false alarm policy and recuperating costs from that. And in as much as this is a briefing note, not a first reading, we would like to know if council thinks we're on the right track, if there's other changes or adjustments um, that we could make, or other issues that should be addressed more starkly or firmly in the minds of council. Um, Presently, the bylaw is 17 years old, and only through kind of cryptic wording only permits the charging of fees if there's a contravention of the bylaw en route to the fire response. That is somewhat dated and no longer really a standard of any fire practice that our research has found. Um, false alarms tend to be an ongoing issue for the police and the fire service. We have addressed, some municipalities address false alarms for all first responders in one bylaw. We're seeking to address false alarms regarding the fire service in this bylaw, and we have proposed some costs in a schedule, but depending on the wishes of council and how everyone sees this, of course, that's open for revision and for change. We are seeking, with the chief's qualifications, to set out specific costs for fire inspections and keeping in line with our quality management program regarding inspections that must be conducted on certain facilities within certain periods of time, all in the name, of course, of public safety. These changes would be significant for our abilities to recover costs, but we are seeking to act reasonably and prudently and to further reduce the financial burden on the taxpayers of Drumheller. We understand there are substantial costs along with the fire service. We take pride in providing service to the town of Drumheller. However, if things can be done, as I've hoped has been made clear here, to mitigate these costs and to recover fees where possible, we'd like your support or input as to how you would like that to be carried out, or any other wishes regarding how the new bylaw should be comprised. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, who wants to start the questions? Go ahead, Steph.
Thank you very much for this. I have a few questions. The first one's about the key boxes. Just, are we gonna be doing like a bulk order of them and the building owner can purchase them for us just so that the firefighters are able to access those key boxes to the buildings with no issues?
We have a key box program. Perhaps the chief would.
Yeah, currently we do have a key box program. Thank you for the question. We have a key box program now, and how the key box program, it was prescribed in the 2019 fire code. In the 2023 fire code, it's come out of that fire code, and now it is at the discretion of the authority having jurisdiction, and that is us. So the idea to continue that key box program is to give us quick access and with keys to the entire building as necessary. So to answer your question, our local locksmith does have a number of key boxes in stock. If he does close down, we can buy those boxes and hold them and sell them on from here, just as we are doing with the rain barrels.
For fire bans and stuff, do we collaborate with our neighbors? Like the counties surrounding us? Cause I know when we had a fire ban, some of the counties didn't. And if they ended up with a fire, we would probably dispatch our fire trucks there to help them out.
So I do, when I'm looking at doing a fire ban or a restriction or an advisory, there's a number of data points that I do take into effect. One is our drought code. I use moisture codes as well that are provided by forestry in the forest protection area, which is close to us. The data isn't 100%, but between those, the actual weather trends and a number of other things, that's how I come to those decisions if we are going to put on one of those items. I do also look at the surrounding area so we're not an outlier, but typically when we do a fire ban, one or two of our neighboring counties will also be providing one of those as well. And they may go to a restriction or an advisory at their own discretion because they are the authority having jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Ms. Price, also may I add, that's not a decision. The chief will do his research and come to a recommendation. He will then, we will then discuss it. This brought to the attention of the CAO. It's not just unilaterally made. We will comprise the data, but we will apprise the CAO and put forth our reasons for thinking this should happen. And we often encounter circumstances and conditions with the population somewhat different from our neighbors that cause us to be cautious. Anyway, I just wanted to add that, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just wondering if 30 days is sufficient time for the person to be able to make the payment. I'm not sure how long insurance would take to provide a payout if, say, their house burnt down and stuff. So I was worried about that. If that's the case, do we provide like working on that time frame of the 30 days if they don't have the funds to pay right away?
Well, that'd be an administrative thing, and I'm not, I'm not dismissing that thought, but we often encounter sometimes shorter times, sometimes longer times than ordinarily would be perhaps accepted convention or even in a policy. But if people are acting in good faith, we generally don't hold anyone to a specific. If we believe we're moving down the path, so to speak, of reconciling something, like for example, a lot of my stuff is in somebody's insurance, and we don't necessarily hammer down a date. If I say we feel we're both parties are moving in the same direction to reconcile the matter.
Okay, thank you. And that's it.
Lisa?
Talking on that insurance, most insurance policies have a limit on homeowners that covers the recovery cost of fire department charges. So I know it's not unique for us if we choose to move forward with that, because there's lots of places in BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan who are using it. So good on you. I think that we definitely need to look at it because it's anywhere from 10 to 30,000. And it's just a throw in like bylaw coverage and stuff. So that being said, I think we should definitely look forward into that and agree with your comments. And no, it looks good and long overdue.
Tom? Oh, sorry. Lisa.
Sorry. I just want a little bit more clarification on the fire alarm supervision. I forgot my phone because I can't get this thing to work, so I was on my phone. But you did mention alarms revision. So is that just for businesses or homes that have one or two alerts, or are we revising to now RCMP responding to that first?
This will be specifically for fire response, Ms. Zachara.
Okay.
As I said, if council wishes, we can certainly put together not to add everybody's work, but we certainly could put together a false alarm bylaw, a standalone bylaw. Some municipalities have that. Some municipalities have a fire alarm rebate situation where if somebody has continued continued false alarms, and the chief has given guidance, or we've said, please have it looked at, please have a technician, whatever, and they haven't done that, it gets a little more difficult to be forgiving. But if somebody does in fact have an issue, we have had a couple of businesses in town that have had ongoing issues, and I know in fact, because we've gone as far as to speak to the people doing the work with their permission, that there's we would not be like rolling through it like a steamroller and saying, you know, we don't care about this. We want to be cognizant and work with people. By the same token, there are significant costs that go into a response, and we're open. Of course, we expect input, and we're open to changes, suggestions, alterations of what we put down here is for discussion and a starting point for the false alarm, um, the false alarm program, charging people for false alarm. But I said we can work. There's a wide expanse from Newfoundland to Victoria. There's a wide expanse of municipalities and how they apply, you know, false alarm policy. Lower mainland of BC is just a beehive of false alarms and conflicts and police and so many people and so much in one area. But anyway, I'm sure you're aware of that. So yeah.
Thank you.
Couple of questions. I like it. My first question is under the fire services response costs. And it says individuals or entities responsible for a fire. I just need a little clarification on that. So I'm thinking of the house down the street from my house, Selleck's. Had a barbecue that caught the siding on fire. Is they responsible for that, or is that an accident, or how do you define what is responsible? Somebody has old wiring in their house and electrical outlet catches on fire. Are they responsible because they didn't change the wiring, or it's old, or I just need clarification of what responsible means.
Certainly, Mr. Zrisky, you know, we would investigate, and that goes without saying. If somebody is indeed being willfully blind to an issue, and that's been perhaps recommended by previous visit or another first responder, or perhaps even a contractor that we've uncovered that's put evidence forward of this person was warned, or this person is being obstinate, or they've not made the recommendations to enhance their structure by improved wiring system, we would certainly look at that. If somebody is indeed, you know, unaware of what's going on, we're acting in good faith. As I said, our investigation, we would look at that and determine where really the emphasis should be and where fault should lie, if any, in such a situation. That and everyone is different. All the investigations we've conducted, each individual, of course, investigation is different, sir.
Yeah. So regarding the false alarms, I'm very happy that you have included in your comments, and I think this is pretty well known in Drumheller that bylaw first and foremost works with people. That you don't just jump all over people on the first discretion or something. And so I really like that, because I know I've had experiences with that. When I was at the school, we'd have a new person and they were kind of alarm challenged, and they would have alarms go off every time they went in the school. Anyway, so as long as you can appreciate that and work with that, that would be wonderful. And my third comment, just under fire inspections, I'm just wondering if I'll give you a what if, building whatever needs a fire inspection to pass the safety codes and whatever, and a deficiency is identified. So they would have a charge for that. Is that what that's basically what this means?
Thank you for the question.
Financial
The idea is that
sanction.
there's a certain fixed cost to perform the inspection. There is a cost for a second inspection. That would be to ensure all of those deficiencies are cleared. And if those deficiencies aren't cleared, there would be a third and final inspection. Going through, most people are reasonable and they are going to correct all of those things. Now, also, we do have some discretion. We're going to be reasonable with these people. If we go in, do an inspection, we may find a number of deficiencies. Some of these things are to correct, may take supply chain issues. They may take time to get a contractor in to repair, those kind of things. So we're going to give them some leeway again, right, to work with them. And if it's just a simple fact of going through and doing those tick boxes, yep, you've got it all done, it's 100%, there is going to be that second inspection charge. If they have made no effort there is that second inspection charge, and there will be a third inspection. It's about working with the people, as Director Peters.
Tony?
Yeah, thanks for your review on this. I think this is long overdue. Like, we're talking a 17-year-old bylaw here. We all know what costs have done over the last 17 years with respect to manpower, equipment costs, and giving the fire department no ability to recover any of that cost. It lands on our operating budget as a gross figure at the start of the year, and it's borne by all taxpayers. So just the three items that you've identified provide you with the opportunity to recover some of that cost, reduce or recoup some of your costs. And at the end of the day, it's a net lower figure that hits the operating budget, which is paid by all taxpayers. For example, the fire response charge is clearly paid by the homeowner's insurance policy. Up to now, we have just eaten that cost of response. We haven't asked the homeowner's insurance to recover that cost, so that's just lost money.
From time to, rarely, Mr. Locker, there have been occasions where we have done so, but there's been exceptional circumstances that we have
Right,
sought
right.
costs.
But on the majority of
Yeah.
cases, the response does cost money.
Yes, sir.
Insurance will pay for that cost. It provides you the opportunity to recover that cost of the expenses you put out against that. The other one with false alarms, I think in our last operating budget, you identify a significant increase in false alarm responses for this past year. Closing an eye to that just encourages the cost to continue. If there are false alarms, they should be dealt with by the homeowner. If there's refusal to deal with them, or just, sorry guys, sorry you had to come out, you know, that's not the way it should be looked at. So again, giving you that option to do that, it is a waste of resources. It's a waste of taxpayer money for you to be going out on all these false alarms. And I think lastly, that the fire inspections, like you identified, there's a cost to performing a tax or a fire inspection. It's minimal if there's no deficiencies. However, if you're called back time after time after time to deal with these deficiencies that are known, I think you need a tool to recover some of the cost of your time there. So I fully support what you've got laid out here. And I think we should move forward with an update on this 17-year-old bylaw.
Patrick?
Thank you for the work on this. Just a couple questions. The response rates, are those manned rates?
The response rates are for the apparatus themselves.
Just the
That would be
apparatus.
also manned, they would be manned as well.
Okay.
So if the truck requires a 6-man crew, it's going with a 6-man crew for that rate.
Great. For calls where we're responding in the cases of mutual aid, how would those be? Would those go to the department that we're aiding, or would it go to the landowner, or how?
Well, where we work on our mutual aid presently, our costs, if we were assisting another department, we'd have to look at the overall response and who contributed what and what exactly, as I said to Avery, not to not give you a chance, Mr. Kalafa, but I think everything's got to be looked at on its own merits as to determine who pays what. And we would not let anybody down. By the same token, we can't be continually pouring resources with nothing back.
Thank you. Insofar as the false alarms, I'm happy to see that, and I'm happy to see that escalating. I think last year, I think is the area of $70,000 in extra wages because of the high number of calls. I guess my question is this something that should also be addressed on a higher level, not just with the homeowner, and maybe it's something with Alberta municipalities about the 911 service being provided to these companies that just kind of go automatic dial? Like, should they have a subscription or something so that we could recover costs through that, and then they would be more apt to, yeah, I don't know, just make changes?
It is a very large topic of discussion throughout the Alberta Fire Chiefs Association. Sorry. Sorry about that. It's very much a topic of discussion through the Alberta Fire Chiefs Association. We are not unique. This problem is Alberta-wide. There is a plethora of alarm companies out there now that are supplying these services. And sometimes the equipment is faulty or not installed correctly. People are not instructed how to operate their equipment. And we get multiple alarms at a lot of locations. 51% of our calls last year were monitored alarms. 51. And of those monitored alarms, so there were 192 calls. So out of that, there were 32 properties that were habitual, more than one call. Those actually represented 29% of our entire call volume. So going forward with the bylaw, just if we were able to correct that behavior and we all kept brought them down to the one, because everybody has an oops once in a while, burns the toast. If we brought that down, we can see a reduction of about 25% of our call volume, taking that load off our responders and also saving about $20,000 in payroll.
Crystal?
I actually have a quick comment because I have 6 commercial alarms. And the first call always comes to us because usually it is just someone didn't set the alarm or something hit the window or something. And we can quickly, easily check those cameras and the alarm company's still with us. And it could be a quick note, needs to go to 911, right? So I know it happens often with how many staff we have. So there is ways around it if your employer is willing to do that, right? So I'm glad I don't contribute to those false alarms, and I hope I never do. So, quick comment there. My quick questions was just about the fees, just because doing like a quick really search. So, like the city of Lethbridge, they're about $630. Olds is $300 for their fire truck to come out. City of Edmonton is only $842. Stettler's only $400. So I just trying to figure out where you got the numbers from, and yeah, maybe a comparison to other communities. I'm not sure.
So where I took the most of our pricing from is from Alberta Transportation. Alberta Transportation gives a fixed cost for a staffed apparatus or a fixed cost for that staffed engine. That's at $720 per hour right now, with a minimum of 1 hour.
So that's not our actual cost that it costs us for that apparatus to go out.
It's heading that direction. Typically for any call that we get, we have 11 responders per call. And with those 11 responders per call, we work out with wages to about $245 for that minimum 1 hour we're going to pay them. Then we still got depreciation on that. We have reserves we have to build, a number of things like that. Our piece of apparatus now, that engine we bought for $400,000 7 years ago is now $1.2 million. So.
Okay, no, that's good. And then we'll still have the ICF with our neighboring counties when it comes to costs for that as well, right? So that won't affect them when it comes to going out for calls to our neighboring communities.
Absolutely, we still have our ICFs or mutual aid agreements are still in place.
And then who's going to be collecting this? Who's going to be invoicing? Who's going to be doing that other work? Because that's another added on to administration. So,
Miss Chan volunteered to do it for us. Saturdays and Sundays as well. No, we have an idea internally how we're gonna manage it. Sorry, I'm just joking. How we'd manage that internally and from initial, the chief accounting for what's been taken to how we account it. So we have a tentative plan internally, how that's gonna work. Right now, we have a certain billing that goes on for responses on provincial highways, for example. And it may not be demonstrably different from that, but that's yet to be determined. But we have a plan as to how most likely it's going to end up.
So say a vehicle accident and then it's determined by the police who caused the accident, that's who the bill would go to, or would it be split, or we still don't know that?
No, we send our bill to Alberta Transportation.
Oh, okay.
For response on provincial highways. And we send them our resources and our costs and time involved, but only on provincial highways. And
Right.
then they assess it and send it back to us. They will then recuperate but we deal with them straight out.
Okay.
We supply what information we have, information like from the accident report, whatever we have it, but Alberta Transportation gets our billing.
Okay. No, I think that's it. Thanks.
All right, everybody. Okay, so Darian, can you just look at fire permits, section 15.5K. It says cause fire during fire ban, $500. I think that one's gotta be like 10 times, because you know what, you're gonna cause a fire in the middle of a fire ban? That's like, I seriously think that's gotta be doubled or more, because that's just outright foolish. And I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to figure out when you're in plus 30-degree weather for 2 weeks in a row that you might have a problem. So that's my input on that one. What hasn't been mentioned here is the burnout of firefighters, no pun intended, sorry. But with Derry and I had a conversation the other day. We had a gentleman who was with us for a number of years. When he started as a volunteer firefighter, was 35 calls. Now you guys are, you know, 300, almost 400 a year. So these false alarms are a huge, huge problem. And I think that you guys need to really seriously do a really good communication thing to people, that they better get them checked, because they get one chance and then we got to charge. And I think the amount is fair. I would like to probably ask, out of that 500 or that 51%, is the largest number commercial or residential?
It's a pretty good mix, actually.
Okay.
I would say the majority of our stuff is going to be residential. A number of the habitual properties are commercial again, but there are habitual ones that are also residential as well.
Okay, so, yeah, so I assume you'll work with communications and come up with a real good communication plan, but I think people have to know this has gotta stop. Cause we're burning out equipment, we're burning out firefighters, and it's just, I mean, we all make errors, I agree. Set my alarm before and didn't close the garage right, but you know, my alarm company calls me first and I run home, and then I panic if I have to panic, so I think, you know, we all have to figure out our own system, but this has got to stop. We can't burn these people out. You know, they're paid a monetary fee. They're not doing it for the money. They're doing it for the love of being a firefighter. So let's not burn them out by false alarms. So I think it's a great document. You guys have done well. Appreciate it getting it to us this fall like we had asked, because as Tony said, I think it's 17 years old. It definitely needs an upgrade. And I'd like to see it get back to us as soon as possible. All right. Anything else? Okay. All right. Let's move on to 8.5.1, please, Jason. You're on.
Good evening, Council and Madam Mayor. So I'm here tonight to present an RFD for our solid waste contract. So back in July, an RFP was published on bids and tenders, as well as APC, which is Alberta Purchasing Connection. Basically to have waste contractors provide us with a plan or a proposal on how they would do solid waste collection, as well as, so that was residential, commercial, and that's also included in the RFP, but I think things have changed now, is also a recycling, you know, what would it cost to establish a recycling plan? So we received 6 submissions in total. The way these RFPs work most of the time is that there's pretty standard sections of the RFP that define how they'll be scored. So when we receive these, we follow the RFP direction on how they're going to be scored, because that's theoretically how the vendors are proposing their, or should be submitting their proposals based on how they're scored. So for this particular, these submissions, they were quite large. Oh, sorry, just trying to get out so you can see the whole thing, but it's kind of, it was kind of daunting. It was a lot of information to go through. Out of the 6 submissions, some were really good, some weren't. But the overarching sort of result from all this was that Environmental 360 by far had the most complete submission as far as the technical side of the requirement as well as just additional information. You can see the way the scoring matrix kind of works, and how everything was scored based on the RFP. And then further to this document, Dave, how do I switch over to that other? Oh, I think I can do it this way. Sorry, just a second here. This one. So basically the way the submissions work for this particular RFP was that it was a 50-50 split, as far as the scoring was concerned. So the technical side, okay, it's not gonna let me expand that, geez. The technical side was 50% of the bid submission, and then the financial side was the other 50%. So we had to weigh both sides of it. Environmental 360 had the best proposal, as well as their costs were, they weren't the cheapest for either residential or commercial. But when you look at sort of combining this into one contract, even though the town's not necessarily responsible for the commercial side, they by far were the best choice over the length of the 5-year contract. GFL submitted sort of 2 bid submissions in one package. So they provided, their first initial bid was using the equipment that they already have in town. And their costs were pretty substantially lower. They were just lower than I think our lowest bid for residential. The problem was it didn't meet the technical specs of the RFP. We had specifically requested new equipment. And then further to that, GFL had the highest overall year-over-year increase. So their annual increase that they're projecting through the life of the 5 years is 6% a year, and obviously that's compounded over the life of it. So when you look at, their residential cost alone, I think for the first year with new equipment was $360,000. By the end of that 5th year, we'd be up almost $500,000. So we really looked at the sort of not necessarily the cheapest year one, because that doesn't give a fair representation of the submission. So we looked over the 5 years. And Environmental 360 they have the lowest annual increase year over year. Still, it's still combined throughout the length of the 5 years. But like just for example, so their cost for residential for the initial first year was $262,000, but in year 5, it's only 200 and I think it was just under 290,000. So the year over year increases are pretty marginal. Where some of the other submissions, by the you get into that 5th year, and the costs have increased to a point where it's just not sustainable. With the 6 submissions that we did get, even the lowest residential bid submission was still higher than this year's cost for residential pickup through GFL. So there will be a cost increase for the first year, whether there's nothing we can really do about that. So for example, if Environmental 360 is awarded this contract, the initial cost increase for residential pickup will be about 12% over what we're paying now. And there just doesn't seem to be a way around that. Even our lowest bid submission, which was I think $242,000 a year, would still be $7,000 more than we're paying this year total. So from the infrastructure services perspective, our RFD is basically to support awarding this contract to Environmental 360. And they met all of our technical criteria, so brand new equipment. They included things like, customer service relations and how they would do that, informational handouts to the public before they start taking over. So and if you would like, I can forward on their submission, but it was really well done.
All right, thank you, Jason. Can I get a motion, please, council? Patrick?
I move that council award a 5-year contract to Environmental 360 for both residential and commercial solid waste collection within the town of Drumheller.
Seconder, please. Crystal, comments, please. Crystal? Oh, Lisa?
Thanks for the presentation. I was just wondering, you're talking about the environmental 360, and I think you mentioned it was 262,000 a year for residential extra.
No, that would just be the cost for the first year.
Okay.
So that would be like a fixed cost for residential pickup. So what they do is they take a pickup rate per property and they base that over how many pickups we have in total. So I think it's just over 3,000 in total that they would pick up from the residential side. And that basically gives you your rate for the year.
Okay, so I guess my concern would be they're buying brand new equipment. I think all of them said that. And so at 262,000, no, you said it was formulated from each residential and commercial client. I'm having a hard time wondering why, like, even after 5 years, it's still up at 290. Like, they're not buying new equipment or anything at that point, are they?
No, I think what they're doing is just accounting for inflation. You know, and regardless of what kind of contract you put out, especially service based, you're going to have annual increases just to cover their own costs.
No, I totally understand that, but I'm just saying that 262 should you not like minus the cost of equipment going forward from that.
No,
I get it, but
no.
it's quite common with municipalities to charge certain ways. So I'm just wondering why, like, they wouldn't.
So
Yeah.
this is the way, sorry, Jason.
No, go ahead.
It's just, so the way that we've structured the RFP and the results that have come in are what we did in 2016, what was done before, but also what Calgary did for their collection when they contracted half of it out, what Red Deer's done, so this is kind of the norm for collection is to tell us how much you want to charge us per year to pick up every cart on a weekly basis, providing the equipment that we've asked for, which is a new truck.
So I don't disagree, but at the same time, it just seems like costs continue to go up, even though we say inflation, but the initial cost included equipment. And by year 5, it shouldn't.
But they're probably amortizing the truck over 7 years, right? So the truck that they're purchasing, I think it's a 2024 Peterbilt, probably about 450,000. And so plus you got to put someone in that truck 5 days a week, put fuel in it, maintain it, right? So they're looking at, again, all the costs are very similar. So you're not looking at, like, they're all amortizing that vehicle over the period of the contract. So that
I get that. It still doesn't add up, but that's okay. I agree with what you did. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I don't think any of the submissions had any kind of, like equipment, sort of like a payout over the length of the contract.
if you did want to compare, I think Jason talked about GFL put in one bid with existing equipment that was lower, right? So that would be an example of you're not paying for the brand new truck right off the top, except you're paying a higher rate for maintenance, which is why we always want a new vehicle at the start of the contract so that you have security of consistent collection.
Yeah, and even with their lower initial rate with the equipment they have now, so not only potentially in year 5, they've now using a garbage truck that's 12 years old because they've been using that truck for 7 years. But also with their annual increases, like year over year, you're still going to end up paying more in year 5 than you would. Like yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
Crystal?
Okay, I remember now. I have a quick question. Why do commercial, they get to choose who they want to pick up their garbage? Like Waste Management comes in, picks up someone's commercial bins. We have GFL, I've seen other ones, or they privately do it themselves. That is, from my understanding, that is very unique. that normally does not happen anywhere else? Why aren't all the commercial just the same?
So I can answer that.
Yeah, I can't speak to
Just,
that.
I have this stupid knack of history of, so it, I guess about 15 years ago in Drumheller, we had the waste managements and there was no, the BFIs and Jim's Waste and stuff like that. And the problem was is that everyone tried to undercut everybody else, and you would get some people that would, so waste management would come here for 12 bins, and then that's it. And so what they end up doing is that they would end up not coming out because it didn't give anyone enough of a base to set up a business here. And so everyone was leaving their trucks in Calgary or Strathmore or Airdrie and driving out. And if the roads weren't good, if it was inclement weather, they just wouldn't pick stuff up. So there was a real concern about service and lack thereof. Again, it's about 15 years ago. So council of the day, I think, decided to do what's called a franchise agreement. And a lot of municipalities actually have franchise agreements, a lot more than you think they do, where you basically are giving the opportunity for one contractor to have all the business in town and no one else can compete with them. And that allows them to set up a shop in town, an office space and everything else. And so that it gives them enough to be successful, which at the end of the day should lower the cost to the customer, commercial customer, and provide a good quality service. So we're, yeah, I wouldn't say we're as unique as we think we are. In Calgary, Airdrie, right, there's so much commercial business that you can have multiple companies compete in that same realm, but if you might have one or two out here and that's it, at the most, so.
Yeah, it's just a relative of mine drives for waste management. He picks up 3 bins here once a week. Like that just does not make any sense.
Yeah, and interesting enough.
Why can't it just be all the same? Why can't we just
So
one contract?
that's probably an offline conversation, but like because that shouldn't be happening. There should be no waste management contract here. I suspect I know where it is, as I'm looking at another counselor. But that's exactly the problem, is that there shouldn't be any other, if someone's phoning waste management should be saying, we don't provide any service in Drumheller, so.
Tom?
Yeah, just a question on the logistics. So the company is going to have an office in Drumheller, or like I look at some of the other examples of places, and there doesn't seem to be working in the vicinity. I mean, I look at Claresholm, I look at Innisfail, I look at Black Falls. Those are pretty far away. So I'm just wondering, garbage truck is going to drive from Innisfail to here on a day, or they're going to be stationed here, or any idea about that?
Some of the submissions did include a caveat where they would establish, maybe not an office, but at least a shop within town, like a service sort of shop within town where they could store equipment, do that kind of things. E360 was one of them. Some did not. Some, I guess, were going to drive back and forth from Calgary, Red Deer, Airdrie, wherever they're based out of. So yeah, at least we have a little bit of a guarantee that they will keep at least something here locally, which hopefully provides jobs and keeps the service running without major delays. Because yeah, as you said, like traveling back and forth from Calgary every day, it doesn't make much logistical sense whatsoever.
So given that they're going to have new trucks, we should put something in the contract that they're going to have one of those trucks in the July 1st parade, because little kids love garbage trucks.
Sure, that's something we could work on.
Patrick?
Just quickly, because we had, with EPR that we have opted out as a community, E360 can still play a role with their relationship with the pros, or how will that be negotiated?
Yeah, so good question, Pat. So just for everyone's information, so the province of Alberta is implementing mandatory recycling provincially. And so because the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Association provides the recycling receptacles in Drumheller, so the ones across from Old 7-Eleven now, plus Nachmine and Rosedale and East Cooley, and the town doesn't provide it. So what's happening is under EPR regulations that any municipality that has curbside garbage collection will get curbside recycling collection by 2026. And so we wanted to opt out because we want to let the folks from the Extended Producer Responsibility Organization actually start up and operate our recycling program. So E360 could absolutely have a role to play in that with them. We want to stay out of it because if you were to go to cart collection, which you would do for recycling, that represents about a $350,000 capital cost for the town that we would have to front end and then get back through the recycling authority as time goes on. And so from our perspective, it was much better for us to let them handle it from day one.
Hey, Tony?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, the proposal there talked about delivering waste to Drumheller Solid Waste, and in the event that it was closed, it would use Hannah as a backup. When would it ever be closed?
That's a really good question. I guess in the event, like, I don't know if the road was impassable, maybe from really heavy rains, because there are times where they can't get up to the landfill to dump because the roadway kind of gets, I wouldn't say unpassable, but it gets pretty bad. That could be one potential time. Or I suppose maybe if they went on a strike, like that kind of like a labor dispute, that kind of thing. Every proposal included like a backup site as part of the.
Okay, so it would be a backup site then and would be part of the contract, not an additional cost above?
No, it was included in their proposal.
Anybody else? All right. Well, I love their KPIs. I'm all about KPIs. So it was nice to see a submission that actually is going to monitor that, which is huge for, it's kind of like our C-Click Fix. We can monitor the days of response and that kind of thing. So this is really good. And I love it seems like their customer complaint process seems to be very thorough. So it'll be great for us to be able to direct that directly to them. So that was the only two that you guys asked. Everything else I had. So anybody else have anything else? All right. So all in favor of the motion that Patrick made on this? Carried. Thank you, Jason, and thanks for the complexity of the discussion on this. And now I shall ask for a motion to go on camera. Please.
Actually, just before that, just a question that actually Greg had is, I don't know, when does this start?
Oh, I'm sorry. January 1st, 2025.
All right, who's going to give me a motion to go into closed session? Tony?
I move that council close the meeting to the public to discuss third-party business and local public body confidences as per FOIP 16, disclosure harmful to business interests of a third party, FOIP 23, local public body confidences, and FOIP 24, advice from officials.
Seconder, please. Lisa, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone, for being with us, and wishing you a wonderful evening and a great weekend. We will be back